The 2024 European Championships has been incredible so far. In this video, we review the group stage, analysing every group in detail and which nations have been surprising or disappointing. This is our 2024 Euros group stage review. Alright, let's get into the groups then. We'll of course start with Group A. Germany top of it on 7 points, Switzerland then on 5, Hungary knocked out on 3 points in third place, Scotland bottom on 1 point. Shall we start at the bottom and work our way up? Scotland, a tournament that was so much promise, but ultimately nothing came from it.
Yeah, I think Scotland's biggest highlight really was their fans. Absolutely incredible support from the Scottish, it has to be said. Give them credit, they were absolutely unbelievable and they gave their team everything. But realistically, on the pitch, it wasn't good enough from Scotland. I mean, the Germany game was simply embarrassing. The conceding 5 goals, going down to 10 players was really poor. I think the point at Switzerland was... It was a good point, but when you think about the way they conceded, they'll be frustrated that, Ralston decided to put Shaqiri through on goal and then it was a wonder strike that beat Angus Gunn. That was a frustrating point because that was definitely a winnable game. And then the Hungary game, I mean, it was all or nothing for both sides. They both needed to win. And when it came down to it, Scotland went for the game and they got punished for that. I mean, obviously, we now sit here, we know that 2 points wouldn't have been enough, so it makes sense they did go for the game. It backfired, Hungary scored.
3 points even wasn't enough, was it?
Yeah, so it would have, that last game against Hungary, I do feel that Scotland played better than the results do look. I mean, obviously, the Germany one, yeah, that was simply embarrassing, but they were good against Switzerland, and the Hungary game was, I mean, yes, they didn't have many shots first half, but definitely in the second half, when they finally went for the game, they did have a few chances that they were unlucky.
Yeah, I think they were somewhat fortunate that Switzerland weren't very good in that match because Scotland didn't create many chances at this tournament. That's the thing. I've seen a lot of people go, what if Lyndon Dykes was fit? Would they have scored more goals? Maybe they'd have been better at building out because a lot of their problems came when they'd play it into Che Adams and then the attack would break down. So maybe they'd be better in possession, but I don't think he just adds goals because they weren't creating chances, Scotland, at this tournament. It's not like they had a whole load and Adams was putting them over the bar. They scored 2 goals, one Rudiger headed in his own net and one was deflected in massively by Fabian Schär. So yeah, they didn't. That's the thing. You could look at it both ways. Either they didn't do well enough in front of goal, but they didn't really create chances either. So yeah, I think that's a big issue for Scotland. Defensively, they weren't awful. I mean, the Germany game obviously was absolutely abysmal, but barring that game, they defended well against Hungary. It's only when they pushed for the game that it fell apart. Yeah. And against Switzerland, as you say, if Ralston didn't decide to just feed Shaqiri through, they probably would have won that game as well. So yeah, I think that is a major frustration because defensively they've looked decent. They just didn't really click in attacking areas. Let's move on to Hungary then. Hungary, they came into this tournament with so much promise. Again, they were the dark horses for many people, including myself. Where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it was a simple conclusion of tournament promise did not deliver. And we've seen it happen before when sides, they've been bigged up, everyone's backed them to the hill, they look so strong in qualifying and in other tournaments. We get to the big international tournament and they completely piss it up the wall. They were awful. They really were. I think that they gave Germany a game, but they were always going to lose that one. Obviously, Scotland, they did score, but I think, to be honest, if Scotland hadn't pushed as hard as they did, that would have been a draw. Hungary wouldn't have. They only scored that goal because Scotland went for the game, and they were terrible against Switzerland. They really were. So, for Marco Rossi in Hungary, very disappointing. Very, very disappointing.
Yeah, it just didn't seem to click at all for Hungary at this tournament. They still could have got through. I think they were somewhat unlucky there because 3 points could have been enough, but when you consider such a competitive tournament.
And when you consider there's teams on 4 points that didn't go through, at that point you feel that Hungary could have done better as well.
Yeah, definitely so. But obviously they were last in the group, Ukraine. On to the top 2, Switzerland. I don't think they pulled up any trees, but the fact they beat Hungary in the man they did was super impressive. I thought they were a bit crap against Scotland, so that would be a concern for them going forwards. And then obviously they gave Germany a really good go, but Germany by that point were already through. So Switzerland, are they going to offer a serious challenge to Italy, or do you think they are fortunate to be in the knockouts?
I don't think so. I think Switzerland do what they do best. They get the job done. And obviously, they surprised France in 2020, so who says they won't go out and do it again in 2024 against Italy? But yeah, I think Switzerland, they're a team that get the job done. No one thinks they're a very, very good side. No one thinks they play brilliant football, but they get the job done. They were brilliant against Hungary. As you say, they weren't great against Scotland, but they took their opportunity. And then I feel like the fixtures fell right. The fact they played a Germany side who were already qualified meant that they could take a point off them as well. 5 points in the group stage is a really strong showing from Switzerland. But that's what I say. They don't mess around. They don't do silly results. They get the points on the board. They get the job done.
Yeah, let's talk Germany briefly then as well. Obviously, a lot of hype around them at the moment. Do you think, though, they are slightly overhyped because their group was so easy? Because obviously they beat Scotland 5 on the opening day. Other than that, though, they drew with Switzerland. Their margin of victory against Hungary was quite narrow. So is that Scotland result inflating people's opinions of their team?
It's hard to say because obviously the Switzerland result drags it down when it probably shouldn't, because realistically, if that was a full strength Germany side playing to the best of their ability, they'd have won that game. But as you say, the 5-1 on the opening day really, I think, set the bar high for Germany, and I don't think that is where they're actually at. They are a good side, don't get me wrong, and I think they'll go deep in the tournament, but the side they're on, it's going to be tough. But overall, from the group stage, it was a strong showing. They got the points on the board early. They did the job. You know, taking 2 wins from Scotland and Hungary didn't matter what happened in the Switzerland game, and that showed. You could show they weren't too bothered by the result. Some brilliant goals, some standout players, and I'm sure that they will fancy themselves against Denmark.
Yeah, and of course, this being their home tournament, I think that gives them a very strong chance of going all the way. Let's go on to Group B then. So obviously topping it was Spain on 9 points, incredible showing in the groups. And then Italy on 4, Croatia on 2, Albania on 1, both Croatia and Albania out. Let's start again at the bottom of the group. Albania, actually a surprisingly good showing in all of their games, I would say. Were they somewhat unlucky not to go through? Or not to score more than 1 point?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Italy game to start with, they'll be the most frustrating one, because the fact that they went 1-0 up so early and then threw it away pretty much immediately, conceding, winning in the first 30 seconds, and then they were losing by the 25th minute. That will be really frustrating, because you look at how well they played in the Croatia game. They were brilliant. They held on so well in that game. If they'd done that against Italy, then maybe we'd be talking about them going through or whatever. Again, the Spain game, I think, would have been very different if they'd played Spain first. The fixtures fell quite nicely for Albania, but realistically, they fought well, but the point wasn't enough.
Yeah, definitely. So I think Albania put up a really good showing, and we'll expect to see them at 2028, given that their squad is quite young. Players like Armando Broja. I know Mash Kambula wasn't at this tournament because of injury, I believe, but he will be back in 4 years' time, you'd imagine. A good crop of young players going through, so that'll be, Christian Aslani. They're players that are just going to get better, so that should be really interesting to see. In third, Croatia, obviously heartbreaking in the way they went out. We thought at the time Italy wouldn't even need that goal. Turns out now, if they had have lost that game, they would be out.
Yeah.
So that quite a crucial goal at the end there for Italy.
Yeah, 100%. And also, yes, in the manner in that last game, we feel sorry for Croatia. But what people forget is they did not do the job in the first 2 games. They were embarrassed in the first half by Spain. They were nowhere near good enough against Albania. And yes, they played well against Italy. Yes, it was harsh circumstances in how Italy got it back. But that's football. If you don't take your chances earlier on in the group, you get punished down the line for that, and they're out, and it's very disappointing.
Yeah, I think Croatia, and more specifically Zlatko Dalic, relied too heavily on the old guard. And if you look at the Spain game in particular, they were just completely outrun in that midfield. And it makes sense because Modric, Brozovic, Kovacic has never been quick, and Brozovic and Modric have both lost a yard because they're 38 and 36, something like that. So they both struggled in there. And then you look at Spain's young midfield of Rodri, Pedri and Fabian, and they're just running around them. So I thought that was really narrow from Dalic. And then you look in the performance in Albania, where they were 1-0 down for ages. They made the changes. Martin Baturina came on, and he looked like their best player. Yeah. And yet, when they turn up at Italy, he's benched. They played well against Italy. They were unlucky to concede at the end there, but ultimately, they had to deal with that chance from Zukagni, and they didn't. But yeah, I don't think Croatia were good at this tournament, though, at all. I wouldn't say it's too much of a shock. I know a lot of people, obviously, because of their performance at previous tournaments,
realistically,
is surprised. But
they are a big nation. They've got some very big players. Just Dalic didn't play them.
From a reputation standpoint, yeah. But I think if you look at this squad, as we said in the preview, when we did our group preview, I didn't think they were going to be near the top 2. Now, Italy were poor at this tournament, really poor at this tournament. But they might pick it up in the knockouts, but they were really poor in this group stage.
Yeah, but
Croatia should have done better.
I think we'll move on to Italy now. I think it's a weird one to say that, because For Italy, they did exactly what you expect. They beat Albania, they drew to Croatia, and they lost to Spain. If you told me that happened before the tournament, that's exactly how I would have had it. A tough game against Croatia, a win against Albania, and a loss to Spain. Yes, obviously the loss to Spain could have been 4-0, but I think the Albania game, I think, yes, Albania played well, but I'd still say Italy deserved to win it. I think Italy did well enough to win that game, and Croatia was a bit of a weird one because both sides, Italy were playing for the draw, and only really decided to come forward when Croatia scored. But Italy, they got the job done. That's what you need to do to win it. They proved that in 2020. You've just got to get the job done, get yourself into the knockouts. They'll fancy themselves on the side of the draw they're in. They'll fancy themselves against Switzerland. So overall, a decent group stage for Italy just to get that job done.
Yeah, I agree that they will take what they've managed to get from this group, but I don't think they've been very good. I think obviously before the tournament they'd have completely agreed with those results, but when you add the context of the fact that Spain completely outplayed them the whole match, and if it wasn't for Gianluigi Donnarumma being absolutely phenomenal, and obviously that is a part of Italy team, they have Donnarumma, but they were bailed out by him so many times in that game. In the Albania game, they showed that they just can't kill it off, and actually Ray Manar was so unfortunate not to score an equaliser on 89 minutes, and the Croatia game, they needed a last minute equaliser. For me, that doesn't represent they are a team that will provide a proper threat later in the tournament. I think even Switzerland's going to be a really difficult game because Switzerland proved against Germany that they can set up well against those really aggressive sides. And actually, Switzerland have a really decent team. So I think that's going to be a really interesting game. But let's move on to Group C. We're saying as well we will be previewing all of... we haven't done Spain, but we will be previewing all of those knockout ties tomorrow, so look out for that video. Spain, phenomenal. That's all it needs to be said, isn't it? They played the best football at the tournament. They should have steamrolled every team in the group. Won a win against Albania in the final match day, but Spain rotated literally everything in the squads. The Italy game, they could have had about 5 because they were just completely, so good in that game. And Croatia, I think they were somewhat fortunate not to concede in that game because Croatia did have chances they didn't score, but Spain could have had. They killed
the game off first half. It was classy. It was quality. Spain are going to be up there at the sharp end. A really strong group stage from there.
Yeah, I think the only reason that people are rating Germany over Spain is because Spain haven't had that huge result, but Spain haven't conceded yet and have looked like scoring about 10 every game. So for me, they're a huge threat going into this tournament. And Georgia in the knockouts, lovely tie. Let's go on to Group C then. Obviously, England topping it on 5 points, Denmark on 3, Slovenia on 3, Serbia on 2.
Worst group in Euros history. Yeah. Quite literally is, by stats, the worst group we've ever seen.
Only one game in there wasn't a draw. There was only, 7 goals in the groups?
I think you can say the same for every single team. Rubbish.
Yeah.
Just rubbish.
We'll start with Serbia.
Don't want to talk about them. They were crap. They were awful. Yeah. They played awful football. They did absolutely nothing. Mitrovic missed at least a dozen of chances in each game. Rubbish football team.
Yeah, I think they really should have dropped Mitrovic for this tournament. Evidently playing in Saudi Arabia is going to lower that level. I think that they could have got something from the England game, but they sat way too defensive. Yeah. And that's what's knocked them out of the tournament. Yeah. Because they just simply couldn't score. I mean, they scored 1 goal in the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's just not good enough, is it? Like, you look at any other team in the group. Even Scotland scored 2. Yeah, I know technically they didn't score either, but they got them in the back of the net. Let's talk Slovenia then. Getting through.
Well done.
Huge result. A tough draw next, but really good to get there.
Yeah, it is really good to get there. I mean, they did what they needed to do. They sat back, took 3 points, and I think they got pretty fortunate that 3 points was enough because, we've seen before that sometimes it isn't. But yeah, they're through. They did the job. I mean, it's hard to say that they did well because every team drew in this group, so getting 3 draws isn't like... they worked hard. They should have beat Serbia.
Yeah, but they are low quality.
They are, and England just didn't care in the last group game. Denmark, they did well to get a draw against Denmark. I was very impressed. They should have beat Serbia. So I think maybe you look at that and you say that maybe they should have picked out more points, but they're through, and that's what matters to them.
Yeah, Denmark then in second. A really poor tournament, I'd say, from Denmark. They didn't. Yeah. They haven't really posed much of a goal threat to any team. In the England game, England were crap, but Denmark's only goal came from an absolute belter from range from Morten Hjulmand. So
for me, Denmark didn't kill the game against Slovenia, got punished. If England actually played good football, England would have won that game. And how you're drawing 0-0 to Serbia, I don't know. I really don't. I don't. Denmark, they got Germany up next. It was a decent group stage. They did well to get through, but it's just one of those.
Yeah, I don't think they've been very good in the groups. However, if there's one team that are going to show up in the knockouts,
Yeah.
it's Casper Hjulmann's Denmark. So I wouldn't write them off yet. I think every game in the knockouts is going to be phenomenal, but I think that has a bit of upset potential. I still think Germany are going to win, but I think that has upset potential. And let's move on to England then, topping the group on 5 points. I mean, I want to be super positive about this. England topping the group looked incredible.
Yeah,
Only 1 goal conceded in the whole group stage. What a team. But it just was. There's not that feeling, is there? Because we didn't play well.
We didn't, but I mean, we're not going to delve into it now because we could probably do a whole 25-minute video just about England.
25-hour video.
Yeah, probably. I think we honestly could, and we wouldn't run out of things to say. But yeah, no, I think it wasn't good enough from England. But again, as I've said, I think about 10 times already this video, they did the job. They're through. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't nice. It wasn't exciting. Hopefully that will change on Sunday.
Yes, I'm bloody praying it does.
Yeah.
Let's go on to Group D then, because we're on to the groups now. We're
Yeah.
out of the shit shows.
Here we
Let's
go.
get in the groups, because D, E, F, all absolute belters. We'll start with Group D. Austria coming out, the underdogs, on top with 6 points. France in second with 5 points. Netherlands on 4 points. Poland on 1 point. Obviously, I'm excited to talk about Austria, but let's start with Poland. Let's not break this structure. Poland had no Lewandowski to start the tournament. Played really well against Netherlands, gave them a good fight, but they weren't great, were they?
They weren't great. To be honest, I think the way to talk about Netherlands is to Poland is not say anything at all, because that's the kind of team they were. They just gave nothing. There was nothing really.
Well, Netherlands, they put up a really good
after the
fight.
Netherlands game, there was no fight, there was no desire, there was no quality. It was just very average, very meh from Poland,
Yep.
and they were never going to get through. It was a tough group.
Yeah, when you're relying on Adam Buxa to try and find you near post headers.
He scored a good header, but it's just like Poland are just like if they weren't in this group, no one would have missed them.
No, I mean, they got absolutely torn apart by Austria.
Yeah.
And then, a draw against France in the final match day, but France haven't scored a goal from open play yet. So, yeah, I think Netherlands will move on to them in third. They are through, but
Just.
it wasn't convincing. I think Ronald Koeman's got a lot of thinking to do. Joey Veerman was absolutely shocking in that Austria game. He was the one who was hooked after 36 minutes. And, I felt sorry for the lad, but as Rafael van der Vaart put it, it was sorry to watch him play. He's got absolutely mullered in that game. So, yeah, Netherlands, for me, just weren't very good in the group stage. The Poland game, they scraped by. The France game, I mean, that was absolutely... that was a disgrace to football.
That was an agreement.
Game.
That looked so set up, the way they played that game. And then even when Simon scored a perfectly good goal, they went, no, we've got a draw.
Yeah.
We've paid each other money.
Yeah, exactly. But, and I don't think France were good in that game, so I wouldn't really take that draw as much. And then you look in the Austria game, and Austria are brilliant. Austria were absolutely brilliant in that game, and Netherlands couldn't really... they scored a couple of goals, but they couldn't really keep pace with them. And then France in second. A big disappointment, I think, from France. 2 draws in there. They haven't scored a goal yet from open play.
There's a different thing that we say about Italy, we say about England that it wasn't good enough, but there's something different about France because with the pedigree they've got at the tournaments in the last few years, we know that even if they've had a dodgy group stage, yes, but we know that France could quite literally turn up against Belgium and put 4 past them. They really could. That's the kind of team they are. So I'm not worried yet. If they are to lose to Belgium, obviously they're out and there's no worrying because they're done. But I mean that would be a big game. If they because I look at Belgium side, they could wipe the floor with them. Obviously we'll touch on that tomorrow. But yeah, I think France again, not a great group stage, but they're through just.
Yeah, and obviously, if, as you say with that France game, if Lukaku scores even a tenth of the chances he gets, then they will win 5-0. But yeah, Austria, incredible throughout the group stage. I said it on the opening night when they played against France, their opening night of the tournament, not the opening night. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching them play. I thought they deserved to win that France game. We're so unlucky that Verba decided he forgot which end they were shooting in.
Yeah.
Austria couldn't finish their chances in that game, but they showed in the Poland game and the Netherlands game, they know how to score goals. I think once they put Arnautovic in there, while he didn't provide the goals, what he does provide is someone to play off of. And then that created chances for other players in there. And I think they were really, really good throughout this tour, throughout the group stage, Austria. I'll be really intrigued to see how they get on going forwards, because I think it's that classic scenario where anything could happen really with Austria. They could go all the way. They could get semi-finals. I wouldn't be hugely surprised. They could get quarters and lose to Netherlands. That's an interesting storyline because obviously they've already beaten Netherlands.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, could they do that? They could even lose to Turkey. In the round of 16. That is a difficult tie, but I think Austria will likely have the edge in it.
Yeah, I mean, for Austria, it was perfect. They played to their strengths and played to the opponent's weaknesses. That's why they topped the group.
Yeah, and top of the group in that difficult group
is
really strong. On to Group E then. Obviously, Romania top on 4 points, Belgium second on 4 points, Slovakia third on 4 points, and Ukraine last on 4 points. I've seen a lot of people, we're going to start with Ukraine, so a lot of people going, I feel so bad for Ukraine, and they're so unlucky, the only team in Euros history to get knocked out with 4 points. But ultimately, they were absolutely crap against Romania. They didn't really pose a threat until the last 20 minutes against Belgium. And the Slovakia game, they conceded first and had to come back in it. Yes, 4 points, you're unlucky to go out. But they were so poor in that Romania game. That's why they're out.
Yeah, I see that, but on the other hand, going out because of one game is very unlucky. Because when you think about the rest of the tournament, you look how other teams have played in this game. Because if you said that France went out on how bad they played in the Poland game, just because that you'd say they're unlucky. Because that's the thing. If there's other teams in this group, Germany, they were brilliant in 2 games. If they went out just because of the Switzerland game, we'd say they're unlucky. To get 4 points and to go out is ridiculous. I mean, they'd go through in most other groups in the tournament. You have to feel for. I do feel for them. Yes, they weren't good against Romania, but they still beat Slovakia and drew against Belgium. And again, I do think it's unlucky fixturing, because if they'd drawn to Belgium first game, then beaten Slovakia, if they played Romania last, I don't think they'd lost 3-0. Simple as that. So yeah. I do think the way it's been scheduled has done them in. Yes, they should have done better against Romania, but the way they played much better in both games, and in the Belgian game, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
For me, though, they've only got themselves to blame. I completely agree. It's unlucky with how their scheduling's gone, but the situation in the Belgium game, and they couldn't find a goal. Yeah, they were somewhat unlucky in the fact they didn't find a goal, but they didn't, and that is solely on them. They couldn't put the ball in the back of the net.
Well, yeah,
they knew the situation.
2 off the goal.
They knew that Romania and Slovakia would be more than happy to play out a draw.
That was a fix.
It was a good game, to be fair. So it wasn't.
Penalty
I thought they were just going to knock it around the back for a bit and not score any goals. But yeah, no, I thought. I get why people feel that way, but I think they knew the situation. If they wanted to get through, they had to beat Belgium. They didn't. So yeah, they're unlucky with how it panned out. But yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes.
Fair enough.
On to Group F then.
We've
got to do the other teams.
Yeah,
Slovakia. I forgot. Slovakia.
Really good. Very impressive, Slovakia.
Very good.
Yeah, they were good for the first 25 minutes against Ukraine, and then they got absolutely battered in the second half. Yes, it was only 2-1, but Ukraine just tore them apart. And they did struggle in that game. And then the Romania game was the biggest setup in international football I've seen in a long time. Because I think they accidentally took the lead and they went, we better get back.
To be fair, Slovakia, better possession in the Ukraine game. More shots than Ukraine.
Yes, but look at the XG.
0.86 to 0.51, yeah.
I thought I said 1.51. Okay, my eyes are...
Oh, sorry, it's 1.51.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But yeah.
Exactly, it's absolutely ridiculous. Slovakia were terrible. In that game. Well, they were. But yeah, they played well. They beat Belgium. They did the group in the reverse order. But they did it. They did the hard way, but they're through. It was a brilliant performance. Again, scheduling did them nicely, because if they hadn't played, if Romania weren't in the same situation, they would have lost to Romania. If Romania needed to win, Romania would have won that game.
Yeah.
But because Romania knew they only needed a draw, they weren't pushing for it, and then they got a nice penalty, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk Belgium then in second. Probably
terrible.
I mean, other than France, probably the biggest disappointment of the group stage.
Worse.
Just in the fact that, because obviously France expects so much higher than Belgium, that comparatively.
They played each other, that's going to be fun.
And at least Belgium scored a goal.
So they scored 2.
There you go. That's better than France managed to play.
Belgium were awful in the Slovakia game.
Belgium weren't awful.
No, that's harsh, because Trossard didn't have a good game. Doku had no end product. De Bruyne went missing, and defensively, De Basten face looked drunk.
Yeah.
I think, and Yannick Carrasco left back was funny to watch. The Romania game, yes, they won it 2-0, but when you think about Dennis Mann going through on goal, Ratiu going through on goal, Marin had an opportunity, Stanciu had a chance. How Romania didn't score in that game, I don't know. And if they had made it 1-1, then I think they would have probably held on. Like the
that's
2-0. De Bruyne scored because Romania pushed forwards. So I think they got a bit fortunate in that game, and then the Ukraine game was probably one of the worst games I've watched at this tournament. It was just them sat there. I mean, Malinowski had one claw off the line from a corner, like directly from a corner. They were terrible. They just sat there and went, "Oh, that's all right. Come on then, Ukraine. Come and score. Try and score."
Yeah, and again, I look at France and Belgium meeting up in the round 16. Two sides that can't score any goals. It's either going to be...
Belgium can't defend.
It's the perfect game for France to find their shooting boots, isn't it?
Yeah.
Batman scored 10.
Vertonghen's, he can't. Valface can't defend.
Yeah, let's talk about Romania briefly as well. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. To top the group.
I mean...
They're really unlucky that they've managed to draw Netherlands by topping the group.
But I think they're giving... I think they're hard done by the fact that a certain team in Group F have kind of stole all the headlines, because this... Absolutely brilliant. What a group stage. As I said, I think they played well in all 3 games. They were quality. Probably one of the most convincing performances we've seen at this competition so far was Romania against Ukraine.
Yeah.
As I said, they played well against Belgium. They set up well. They can to concede early on and then to hold it for a good 60 minutes, 70 minutes until De Bruyne scored because they went for the game. Romania, they take their chances. They got something from that game, and then Slovakia game, they knew what they were playing for. They got the job done. But a really good. I think they are one of the most. They're up there with Austria and Spain as one of the most consistent sides in the group stage.
I think the thing is, people have heard the country Romania, and they forget that they've never played in the Euros.
And they say, "Oh, Hadji."
It's their first ever Euros since they separated. I believe it's their first ever Euros. So fairly incredible stuff from Romania. Let's get on to Group F. Bottom of the group. Sorry, we'll start at the top. Portugal on 6 points, Turkey 6 points, both through. Georgia through on 4 points, Czechia out on 1 point. We'll start, of course, with Czechia. Really shit, really. They couldn't score a goal.
Yeah,
they think set up well against Portugal, was probably their best game.
I think the Portugal game. But again, they set up well against Portugal, and I watched that game, and they played well. And then Hranak stuck one past his own goalkeeper and then stopped one in between his knees so that the Conceição could score. Then the second game he gave away a penalty against Georgia. That bloke was on a mission to single-handedly get Czechia knocked out. But yeah, they just weren't good enough. They just really weren't good enough. And I think the fact they lost that Portugal game kind of killed their momentum. If they'd won or drawn that game, I think they would have probably beaten Georgia. But, they were just not very good.
Yeah, it just felt like, you've got
players... I feel for the Turkey game,
in there.
Because I think if they had 11 players, as they should, they gave that a good go even with 10 men. With 11, I think they'd have given that an even better game. But they they drew to Georgia, which, felt bad, but we might as well move on to Georgia now. A draw to Georgia seemed like a bad result. But, oh my word, what a group stage.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
We'll start by playing it down a bit by saying that they've got very fortunate with the way their games are scheduled, but obviously they don't arrange that, and they played it to a T. They gave Turkey a good game, but eventually quality prevailed. They took a point from Czechia, which then gave them the chance to do the unthinkable. They went and did the unthinkable. 2-0 against Portugal was absolutely brilliant, and we'll touch on Portugal in a minute because they were fun. But yeah, superb from Georgia. Willy Sagnol, take your hat off. Kvaratskhelia was brilliant. Mikhail was my standout man for them in the group stage. They were superb. Mamardashvili was absolutely ridiculous. One of the best up-and-coming goalkeepers at the moment. Thoroughly impressed by Georgia.
Yeah, and again, we expected those players to come up big, and they did.
Yeah.
Kvaratskhelia was absolutely phenomenal in that Portugal game. And I know Mikhail Tadze will take the headlines for the group stage, but he did score 2 penalty goals. But yeah, Kvaratskhelia for me, their player in the group stage, or Mamardashvili, because he was absolutely incredible in every game.
And they set up well. They set up well.
They did. Well. They definitely did. And it makes such a difference. You look at Czechia, and Stanek always strikes fear into the hearts of your own fans, whereas Mamardashvili is the safest pair of hands at the tournament by far.
Honestly, that bloke made some ridiculous saves.
Top 2, then Turkey in second. I've watched every Turkey game. I thought they were brilliant in every.
Exactly what you'd expect from Turkey.
Yeah, Portugal, it was odd that they rested up so heavily, but I kind of get it, because they weren't going to ever win that game. I know we don't really like to see that, but they knew they were on 3 points anyway, and a draw would have been enough against Czechia in the final match day, so I get it. I get why they rested up against Portugal. Ultimately, if Akadin didn't, poke one past his own goalkeeper, maybe they would have done better in that game.
But again, compared to group stage expectations, they beat Georgia as expected, they beat Czechia as expected, they lost to Portugal as expected. They'll be very happy. 6 points, they're through.
Yeah, exactly, and I think Turkey will be a big threat to Austria. I think that's going to be a really interesting game. 2 sides that play really direct football. that has fireworks written all over it. Ranić versus Montella, some really exciting attacking players. I'm excited to see it. And then top of the group, Portugal. They got the job done, but I'm not convinced by them. I think that if they're serious about winning this tournament, Ronaldo has to be dropped. And that might be a controversial statement, but I don't think he's at that elite level anymore.
Very similar to some teams. I mean, as I said, Ranić handed them the win on a silver platter because they would have lost that game with 3 minutes to go. And then we saw one of the worst defensive performances I've seen from a single player in the Euros. I think, obviously, the Turkey game, again, Turkey handed it to them by resting and by putting one in their own net.
That's the thing, they still scored 5 goals, so it's not like France where, they really couldn't find the back of the net and they were very fortunate.
Yeah, they did.
They did still score 5 goals.
But when they
especially that final game.
2 were own goals, they were really crap against Georgia, and Ranić did get an assist for one of them as well. They created 2.
And that's the thing, people will say, but they rotated in that final game. I don't bleeding care. They're playing against Georgia, and it's not like they brought on a fan.
Antonio Silva was really poor in that game.
Yeah.
He was terrible.
Obviously, conceding that penalty.
And he gave the ball away for the first one.
No, exactly. So
he just passed it to...
I still think he's a very good player, but I still think Roberto Martinez is massively out of his depth.
Pereira in the middle of back 3, the
To be fair, he has played there a lot for PSG, so I can somewhat understand it. My bigger qualm is with Pedro Neto playing left wing back.
Yeah, that's also horrific.
Hooking Palinha at the break, who was probably their best player. I don't really get that one either. I think, again, Ronaldo, you look at his football stats, a 5.8 rating. He did nothing all game.
Yeah.
He got booked for diving and then complaining about it. And I think, again, they're just not great. I thought that João Felix is one of the best players. He's not been able to get a look in. Because, I imagine he might play the knockouts. I think Leao...
Maybe. Who knows?
Leao was suspended for this game.
I mean, I think they've got nice at the fact they've got Slovenia. But Slovenia aren't an easy side.
No, they're definitely not. I thought, again, Inacio, one of their better players, probably won't play in the knockouts though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an odd one for me. I think that Roberto Martinez is massive out of his depth, and I don't think Portugal are serious contenders for this one. I think that, they'll probably beat Slovenia, but if France can work out where the back of the net is, they're going to win that game quite comfortably. So, yeah, I think that rounds off our group stage review.
Yes.
A very good group stage. The best group stage ever, I would say.
Yeah.
An incredible tournament so far. The knockouts are coming up on Saturday. Look out tomorrow for our preview for all 16 teams, all 8 games. So I was about to say 16 games. All 8 games should be a very good one. It's been a fantastic tournament so far. We're live for every single game, so make sure to join us. And thanks to everyone that has joined us so far. But yeah, that is everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.